All right, welcome back to our probably second or third to last spiritual conference here. Let's hide this guy here. All right, so we're almost to the final grade of prayer. We are one short. So, grade 8, we are very much in the realm of mystical prayer. We had prayer of simple union last week, so this was where all of the interior faculties, so not just the intellect and the will, but also the imagination and the memory, were all captivated by God. The only thing that was left not captivated by God was the external senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, etc. Okay. Prayer of conforming union now is a deepening of the prayer of simple union. Now the exterior senses also lose their function. Okay, so this is also called by a couple of other names: spiritual betrothal or espousal. Also the prayer of ecstatic union, because an ecstatic state, mystical ecstasy, is a normal phenomenon to experience at this level of prayer. So let's break these two other titles down. The spiritual betrothal or espousal uses this marriage analogy to describe the relationship of union between the individual soul and God. Okay, so the prayer of conforming union is like getting engaged to God. Okay, it's the promise and the beginning of a perfect union with Him. Okay, now we're pretty far along the stages of prayer, grades of prayer, so it's not like this is the first time we've talked to God, obviously. But the promise of perfect union with God is now given, and so we start to enjoy some of the benefits of that. Okay, so we'll get to the prayer of transforming union in our next spiritual conference. That's the highest grade of prayer. That, of course, is the consummation of that sort of semi-marital union, if you want to put it that way. So we'll talk about that. This is the engagement, or betrothal, or espousal. Okay, prayer of ecstatic union. What that describes or emphasizes is the experience of mystical ecstasy, which they would say is actually a concomitant phenomenon. It's something that happens at the same time as this prayer of conforming union. And so that's a defining aspect of this grade of prayer, as we'll talk about that ecstatic union. Okay. John of the Cross describes the prayer of conforming union. He says, in that visitation of the divine spirit, the spirit of the soul is enraptured with great force to commune with the Holy Spirit, and abandons the body and ceases to experience feelings and to have its actions in the body, since it has them in God. For this cause, said St. Paul, this is a reference to 2 Corinthians 12, with respect to the rapture of his, that he knew not if his soul was receiving it in the body or out of the body. Okay. So there's something distinctive, pretty unique about this experience of rapture or ecstasy. Okay, the ecstasy is an effect of this union between the soul and God. Okay, it's necessary. We'll talk about the kinds of ecstasy a little bit, but it's necessary in order to expand the soul's capacity. Because this supernatural union with God is something beyond what the human soul is capable of on its own. So there's a sort of stretching, a sort of breaking in, so to speak, an expansion of the soul that is required for this union. And these ecstatic experiences are sort of like if you put a hat on a mannequin head that's a little too big for it. The point is to expand the hat so that it fits a bigger head. Okay. So once you get to transforming union, which is grade 9, there's no experience of ecstasy because the soul has been transformed, so it's fully accustomed to that union. Okay. So this is a stage, the final stage towards that perfect union. So there are two forms in general of ecstasy. You can break these down into subforms as well. The first is the gentle and delightful form. So this is a sort of a flight of the spirit. The soul is not really connected, or doesn't seem to be strongly connected with the body. The body loses its natural warmth. But this is an extremely pleasant experience. Okay, but there's also violent and painful ecstasies, which come with very, very painful experiences in the body. They describe this as if the whole body is dislocated, the body appears to be dead, goes cold, breathing almost completely stops. And this can last even after the experience is over, the body can be weakened for a few days afterwards. Whereas the gentle and delightful form actually benefits the body's health. Okay. But again, even those violent and painful experiences, they are violent and painful because the soul is being expanded in some way. To be conformed to God. And the body then experiences the effects of that on a physiological level, okay, because of the union between body and soul. All right. Now, it remains to be seen. How do we discern? Sorry, sanitation bell. Okay, how do we discern the difference between a natural ecstatic or a psychological, purely psychological experience, say an epileptic type thing, versus diabolical one where you've got maybe a demon is actually causing this kind of experience versus a truly mystical one. In terms of physical and psychological signs by themselves, it's not clear. You can't always differentiate between them. Okay, so the experience on a physical and psychological level can be the same no matter what the origin is. What differentiates a true mystical ecstasy from the natural or diabolical is the fruit. How does it change the person's life or change the person? Okay. Only a true mystical ecstasy caused by the work of the Holy Spirit expanding the soul's capacity to receive God will lead the person to greater humility, detachment from the world, love for God, love for one's neighbor. Okay. If you're being attacked by a demon, that's not going to lead you to greater love or humility necessarily. Okay. And then a natural sort of brain originated kind of ecstasy like this is not going to have that effect either. That's more of an illness. Okay. But this, because it's the work of the Holy Spirit, will transform the soul and transform that person to truly be more conformed to God. All right. It's also important to know this happens in the life of prayer and penance. So it's not like you're walking down the street and this happens. Oh, boom, Holy Spirit just launched this person into the prayer of conforming union. Okay. All right. So the fruit is the real test. Okay, we'll talk about transforming union next time, and that will conclude our talk of the 9 grades of prayer. All right, have a good weekend.